Peter has cancer and needs to shave his head for surgery. He's scared. To encourage him, I cut off my long hair while crying. When I showed up at school with a shaved head, Peter laughed so hard he could hardly stand. Silly guy, do you really like me that much? The teasing looks from others left me confused and uneasy. Turns out, Peter wasn't sick. He made a bet with someone about how far I would go for him. Someone asked Peter if he had feelings for me. With a cigarette in hand, he laughed dismissively. He joked that he'd have to be crazy to like someone who'd go to such extremes even to themselves. Then I heard someone else confessed feelings for me. Peter looked upset and blocked my path. He told me not to accept any love letters from other people. Dumbass, you're so easy to fool, who else will treat you well besides me? At the barbershop, I cried as the hairdresser took the razor to my head. The hairdresser hesitated and asked if I was sure about shaving it all off. I nodded firmly. Cut it all off, it's my promise to Peter. A few days earlier, Peter had sent me his brain tumor diagnosis report. He was annoyed, saying he wasn't going to have surgery because the idea of being bald was ugly to him. I tried hard to convince him otherwise, noting how early-stage tumors have a high success rate for treatment. Peter reluctantly agreed, saying, "Okay, but will you shave your head with me? I don't want to be the only one laughed at." I didn't think much before agreeing. After the hairdresser took off the cape, my long black hair was scattered all around. I touched my shiny head, feeling a sense of loss, but quickly perked up. I asked the hairdresser to take a picture and send it to Peter. "See, shaved heads aren't so bad," I told him. "Plus, you're the school heartthrob, you'll still look good even without hair." I tried hard to find comforting words. My phone showed Peter was typing, but I didn't get a reply for a long time. People on the street gave me strange looks. I rushed home like I'd stolen something, but was still relieved if Peter and I shaved our heads together, I could share some of the judgment he would receive. On Monday morning, I waited downstairs for Peter to go to school together. He looked a bit surprised when he saw me. When I shyly lifted the edge of my cap to show my bald head, he avoided my eyes, acting awkward. With one hand in his pocket and the other scratching his brow, he muttered, "Karina, I forgot to tell you. The brain tumor was a misdiagnosis, no surgery needed." What? It took me a while to process. Really? That's great news. My mood lifted. In the classroom, before I could put down my bag, Alex had flipped my cap off, exposing my bald head to the air. Shock turned to laughter as he clutched his stomach, joking about losing a bet on whether I'd shave my head for Peter. Winking at Peter, Alex teased, "Still, it means something that our school heartthrob is so captivating." Peter picked up my cap from the ground and gently put it back on my head, shooting Alex a look as he told him to shut it. Then Peter smiled at me, his eyes full of humor. "Dummy, you're so easy to trick." It took me a bit in the classroom, but I eventually caught on. Peter didn't have a brain tumor, he didn't need the head shave for surgery. It was all a bet with someone to see how far I'd go for him, for just a game account. "Peter," my voice shook. "Why would you lie to me?" I refused to let him pass, holding back tears as he called me stubborn. Peter joked about needing to calm me down, but his smile was gone. He dismissively said, "What, trying to cling to me? Was it me asking you to shave your head?" Harshly, he brushed past me back to his seat, looking so angry that no one dared approach him. In the seat in front of me, Fiona turned, covering half her mouth with her hand. "Karina, you're close with Peter?" I muttered that we used to be good friends. "Really, huh?" Fiona dragged out the words, glancing at my hat. "The shaved look is kinda cute, those braids were pretty old-fashioned." I tightened my lips, focusing on my textbook. I grew up in the mountains, and after my grandma passed, my parents brought me to the city. My old clothing style was my safety blanket, making me feel like home wasn't far, like my grandma was still with me. Peter knew how afraid I am of others getting sick. My grandma died from brain cancer. Late stage, she didn't have a chance for surgery and suffered immensely. If I could make a wish, I'd wish cancer would disappear, leaving no one sick. I couldn't understand why Peter would cruelly make a joke out of something like that. The bell rang, and Sam walked into the classroom. He frowned a bit at seeing me in a hat. I stopped waiting for Peter to go to and from school together. We were in a cold war, ignoring each other. One day, rumors flew about me having a crush on Peter. I heard my name even in bathroom whispers. People laughed about me being so love-struck. I shaved my head when Peter asked, calling me foolish. How was it being love-struck? It wasn't self-love, but self-sacrifice. Everyone knew Anna was after Peter, and here I was compared to her like I was nothing. I turned back, seeing Peter leaning against a hallway column, his hand around a girl's waist, Anna, the top-ranking goddess on the forum. They both noticed me. Anna smiled, holding me like this. Aren't you afraid she'll be heartbroken? Peter chuckled carelessly. Should I hug her instead? Anna playfully pouted. Swear you don't care about her. I didn't wait to hear more and walked away. But as I passed, Peter's disdainful voice hit my ears. Who in their right mind would like someone who could hurt themselves? I walked slowly back to class, feeling like each step on the smooth concrete was sinking into quicksand. Every agonizing step brought tears, with a throbbing heart akin to those spiky seeds, aching and unable to detach. If only Grandma were here before I turned 10, Peter and I lived in the mountains together. Grandma made 2 veggie pancakes, one for me, one for Peter. I scarfed mine down in front of the stove. Seeing this, Peter split his in half and handed it to me. Grandma chuckled. Peter is so kind to his sister. Peter spoke matter-of-factly. Karina's a bit dumb. I need to protect her, make sure she doesn't get treated badly. The villagers said I stayed in my mom's belly too long, and it messed up my brain. But Grandma told me I was just wisely slow. In elementary school, I was always at the bottom in tests. I knew I wasn't smart. Grandma would pat my head and smile warmly. Not everyone in the world can be a hero. It's nice to be that person who claps for the heroes. Grandma, I'm not weird. I won't clap for Peter anymore. After school, I was stopped outside the complex because I forgot my access card. Peter was walking behind me. The security guard asked if we lived in the same apartment complex. Peter glanced at me, clutched my backpack strap and defiantly turned my head away. Peter smirked. No, don't know her. He looked trustworthy when he spoke. Then he walked past me, calmly strolling into the complex. It was freezing. Snowflakes tickled my eyelashes. A neighbor lady out for a walk finally let me back in. I didn't expect to see Peter waiting at the building door. He seemed to have been standing for a while, with hands red from the cold. He held back my hand when I tried to open the door. His eyes were dark. Karina, how long are you gonna keep this up? Would it kill you to just give in a little? He held on tight, and it hurt. I struggled a bit, and he gripped harder. I tried to stay calm and explain to him. Peter, I don't want to be friends anymore. He chuckled low. Just because of that? Peter pulled out a big black bag from behind him. Latest wigs, consider it an apology. Is that sincere enough? I shook my head. Karina, don't be ungrateful. Peter stared at me, half smiling. You think shaving your head means you can be my girlfriend? Dream on, what a bother. Can't he understand what I'm saying? I repeated, Peter, we're not friends anymore. Peter's smile frosted over. Are you serious? Fine, suit yourself. Peter kicked the wig bag far away. His voice was dismissive. Karina, no one else would put up with someone as dumb as you. He turned to leave. I hesitated for a bit. Then put the bag he didn't want into the trash can. Our grandma downstairs has a heart condition. She'd be scared out of her wits if she saw hair in a black bag. I made dinner and got most of my homework done. Mom and Dad finally came home. I served the heated up food. They washed their hands and ate, occasionally talking about work. I couldn't join in. Mom, there are a few things I don't understand. Can I ask? Mom glanced at my test paper, then frowned. Didn't the teacher cover this? Why you still don't know? Daydreaming in class? Karina, Mom and Dad are discussing serious work stuff. Don't interrupt. Mom waved her hand, and the paper fluttered to the ground. Looks like rain's coming. I picked the test paper up and went to close the window. Dad glanced at the calendar, surprised. Tomorrow's Karina's birthday. On the calendar, tomorrow's date was circled in bright red. I did that. Let's try to leave work early then. I beamed under their kind looks, wanting to leap to the sky and tell Grandma. The classroom was cozy with the heater on. I took off my jacket to show my pink sweater underneath. I had a little bear pin Grandma knitted for me pinned to the front. Alex exaggerated, "Wow, Karina, so pink, kinda cute." Peter, wouldn't you agree? The guy looked up and gave me a cold glance. Not my business. Don't be like that. Maybe she wore it just for you. Peter turned a page of his book, looking disgusted. Fiona's eyes glinted. Anna wore pink today too. Karina, copying much? No, it's my birthday. Grandma said to wear bright colors on your birthday. The girls laughed. Birthday, huh? That's some excuse to flirt. When I wasn't looking, he snatched my hat and tossed it to Big Alexei. Stretched out my arm but couldn't reach it. Among the loud laughs, I felt like a clown with my hat taken away. Karina, hold on. I'll crown you for your birthday. But with no hair, the clip can't stick, right? The girls held my arms tight, no chance to grab my hat back. With many eyes on me, I fought back tears, looking at the person I knew best, Peter. Help me, please. Tears welled up. Peter looked back, raising an eyebrow. I read his lips, beg me. I felt all energy drain away in that instant. I stopped struggling and slowly sat on my chair. Ended the class, bawled, amid the snickers. After class, Sam called me to the office. He looked at my head for a few seconds. I expected to be scolded, but he just frowned. Cold, isn't it? I was surprised, unsure how to respond. He plopped a baseball cap on my head. He kept a straight face. My son just bought it. Never used. Birthday today? Looking sharp. He cleared his throat, exchanged a look with the nearby teacher. The lady beside him smiled. Pink looks good on young girls. Makes me want to be 18 again. The cap had a thin lining, warm and snug. I asked Sam carefully, don't tell my parents, okay? I meant about shaving my head. Sam took it in, surprised. Your parents don't know yet? It's been half a month. But I wear a hat daily, and they're always busy with work. I understand. That night, choked by flour, I prepared to make 3 bowls of noodles. The book says a child's birthday's a mother's hardship day. I saved heaps of pocket money to buy gifts for Mom and Dad. I hopped and skipped to answer the door, only to be slapped in the face out of the blue. As I hit the ground, my elbow slammed into the tiles, sending a sharp pain through me. My hat fell off, revealing my bald head. Mom was furious. How dare you? Shaving your head in silence like this. Are you trying to curse me and your dad? I thought to myself, I might be dumb, but at least I used to be considered obedient now, even those qualities seemed fake. They were upset despite ordering a cake for me. The cake was thrown hard onto the ground, and the little girl in it shattered into pieces. Okay, calm down, Dad comforted Mom quietly. He looked disappointed. Karina, because you're not outstanding, your mom and I can't raise our heads in front of colleagues. If you continue to be like this and lie, I'll consider sending you back to the countryside. They went back to their room, leaving me staring at the floor. The cake had a big hole, exposing the mango filling. They seemed to forget I was allergic to mangoes. Rain mixed with tears blurred the chocolate girl's face outside the window. It looked a lot like me, ugly and messy. Holding the ruined cake, I stepped outside and saw Peter. He was standing at the hallway corner, the light hitting his face, creating 2 contrasting shadows. There were quite a few cigarette butts on the floor. Clearly, he'd been there the whole time. Peter. Was it you? Did you tell my parents? I asked, my voice shaking. I trusted Sam wouldn't deceive me, and I actually wanted to believe Peter too. He'd been my best friend for 10 years. But in the moment of his silence, my trust crumbled. I stepped back, avoiding the hand he reached out to me. I ran out of the neighborhood, crying. The cake, crushed but still sweet, attracted a dirty black cat. It seemed hungry for a long time. I went to a pet store and bought a can of cat food. I wanted to buy a small cake too, but after checking my wallet, I gave up. Thanks for celebrating my birthday with me, I said, blowing out the candle on the cat food. The kitten ate happily. So envious. I hadn't even had dinner yet. A slender finger hooked a small cake under the umbrella, handing it to me. I looked up and saw a stranger. He scooped up the cat. It struggled, but stopped when he gave it a calm look. With a soft voice, he smiled, "Thanks for treating my cat." He crouched down, holding the cake with both hands, placing it on my knees. "This is for you. Happy birthday, Karina." He pointed to the hat on my head. I understood. "Are you Sam's son?" He laughed, his cheeks showed dimples, making him look mischievous yet adorable. "Karina, you're smart." The straightforward compliment made me blush. The cake was decorated with a brown bear, resembling my brooch. I learned his name was Henry. He was an athlete from the school next door. "Karina," he said, "since I treated you to cake, can you do me a favor?" He pointed to his leg, smiling miserably. "I got hit by a car." "Why didn't you say so?" I quickly helped him into a cab. At the ER, Henry made me sit on a bench. "Please check her arm," he told the doctor. Once the doctor rolled up my sleeve and tugged my arm, the pain shot through me and I blinked back tears. "Henry, weren't you hurt?" I protested. The doctor shook his head. "Your arm's dislocated, girl. You got some nerve." Henry handed me a tissue. "Wipe your tears," he said. He rolled up his pants, showing his swollen, bloody knee, which was far worse than mine. The doctor rolled his eyes. "You've got nerve, too." Henry laughed softly. I stood by with a tissue, feeling useless. Why wasn't Henry crying? Finally, a nurse came in to apply ointment, but it was Henry's mom who walked in. She didn't bother with Henry, but gently applied medicine to my arm, carrying a comforting scent. She scolded, "Heard you showed up at the hospital, Henry. I thought you got into another fight?" "Mom," Henry interrupted, "no loud noises in the hospital." "Where'd you get that cat?" she asked. "I own it," Henry replied. Annoyed, his mom stormed off. "Do you come to the hospital often?" I asked. Henry glanced at me ambiguously. "I have some issues with classmates, yeah." "They bully you?" I probed. Henry paused, eyes cast down. "Yeah, pretty badly." I understood being ostracized is tough. Unsure how to comfort him, I clumsily said, "Henry, you and your mom are alike. So gentle and so nice-looking too." Henry smirked. "You saying my dad's ugly and harsh?" "No way. Sam's great." "Don't worry, I won't tell my dad," Henry teased, clearly joking. Relaxing, I let out a small sigh. I felt a tinge of envy then. Though she scolded him, Henry's mom's concern was clear, just how I imagined a mom's love to be. Feeling nervous yet hopeful, I checked my phone. No calls from my parents. Not a single message. Returning home late at night, I found a cake hanging on the doorknob. I ignored it. After shutting the door, a door softly closed behind me. Then a message popped up from Peter. "Karina, I'm not that low. Not gonna care about you anymore." I sat numbly for a while. Deleted Peter from my contacts, then opened my blog and posted today's sketch. Grandma always said a hobby needs persistence. I've drawn daily for 10 years, gathering around 100,000 followers. Back when they brought me home, I used to eagerly share my art with my parents. What I got, though, was them dismissing it as a waste of time. Your grandma said to go for an art exam? We've discussed it, and there's no artistic gene in our family, so stay out of it. But today, over 200 messages came wishing me happy birthday. Finally, people like my art. When the clouds clear and the sky brightens, you see the rainbow. Back at school, new gossip spread. Heard Peter finally hooked up with the school goddess Anna. Someone saw them kissing in the grove. Alex led the teasing, chasing Peter for confirmation. Busy memorizing my English essay, I felt a strong gaze fall on me. Peter turned away, smiling lazily. Yeah, dinner's on me tonight, he announced, followed by laughter. Fiona snatched my notebook. Karina, Peter's got a girlfriend. Heartbroken? She taunted. Everyone chimed in. Yeah, Karina used to chase Peter. When she cries the flood wars come. Peter, wanna grant mercy and take Karina as a sidekick? Someone joked. Peter leaned back, smirking dismissively. Do I look like I collect trash? Amidst laughter, I stood up. One guy chickened out. Is she going to snitch to the teacher? No way, she's just a transfer student. If it really gets serious, she'll be the one who gets kicked out. I'm a transfer student from the countryside, so I don't fall under this school's jurisdiction. Sam is a really nice guy, can't let him get in trouble over something like this. I walked up to Peter. He raised his chin, looking a bit smug. I looked him in the eye. The cake you gave me last night was the real garbage, so please clean that up. Peter was stunned. He didn't expect someone who always took things lying down to embarrass him. The other guys gathered around him, surprised and curious, asking why he gave me the cake. Having lost face, Peter looked pretty pissed. He kicked over a desk and gave me a cold glare before storming out of the classroom. Everyone else just looked at each other, too scared to say anything. Peter started unabashedly flaunting his relationship with Anna all over the school. He didn't even care when the school reprimanded him. Finally, no one linked my name with his anymore. I had plenty of time now to draw and study. When I went downstairs to take out the trash at night, I'd often see Henry returning from his night run. He had this fiery aura about him, just wearing a t-shirt in this cold weather. With sweat clinging to his skin, you could see his perfectly shaped abs, broad shoulders, and slim waist. He had the best physique I'd ever seen. I pointed at the cat, Bingo, by his leg. Was he taking the cat for a run? Henry scratched the cat under its chin. It's been sitting here waiting for you for quite a while. Henry said I was Bingo's savior. I felt a bit embarrassed. All I did was feed it a can of food. To thank Henry for the hat he gave me, I made a drawing for him. In the drawing, a tall and handsome guy held a black cat and looked down softly. Henry stared at it for a long time, tracing my pen name at the bottom right with his finger. He smiled. What's up? I was a bit puzzled. He opened up a blog. The only person he followed was me. Karina, look up. He chuckled lightly. I shook my head, feeling extremely embarrassed. It felt like the end of the world, having someone find out your little secret. Bingo nudged at my pant leg, seeking attention. Henry's voice carried a hint of unnoticeable complaint. Is it embarrassing to have someone like me as a fan? And no. I picked up the playful cat, awkwardly lifting my head. Henry, do you really like my drawings? Yes, he said slowly, with a hint of lingering gentleness. I've liked them for a long time. Idle, his eyes crinkled. There's a basketball tournament this weekend. Can you come and cheer for me? The word idle made my face instantly warm. Yet, Henry sounded so sincere. But won't there be a lot of classmates cheering for you? His eyes dimmed, even his eyelashes trembling. I am not really close with them. That's so sad. I understand what it's like to feel isolated. Don't worry, I'll definitely be there. I confidently patted my chest. Henry grinned sweetly. Having an idol is awesome. The basketball game was scheduled for Saturday morning. As I was looking for Henry's team, Fiona grabbed me. How can you be so shameless, chasing him here? Isn't it obvious Anna is Peter's real girlfriend? Her yelling caught Peter's attention. He took the water Anna handed him, gave me a cold glance, and said with a sneer, "You're delusional." I squeezed into the crowd. Just when I was about to be crushed, Henry pulled me into his arms. He was wearing his basketball jersey, his arms lean but powerful, with toned muscles contrasting his scholarly look. The contrasting charm was dripping with testosterone. "Here's some water." I handed it out, but Henry didn't take it. His smile made my heart flutter. "I can only drink the water my idol gives me if I win the game." As he spoke, a gaze fixed on me. Peter nearly crushed the water bottle in his hand. After the game resumed, the score was intensely back and forth. The cheering for Henry far outweighed that for Peter. Didn't he say he wasn't popular? During halftime, Henry guessed, rubbing his chin, "Maybe the school brought in fans for me?" In the second half, he played even better, and even many from our school switched sides, excitedly cheering him on by name. Henry on the court seemed like a different person. Arrogant, assertive, even effortlessly dodging Peter, leaving him in the dust. We won the first place with a dominating performance. The whole crowd cheered for them. "Who's that guy? He's so cool. Don't you know Henry? His mom is the hospital director, super loaded. Lots of girls like him, but no one dares to hit on him. He's cold and has a sharp tongue, never smiles." The girls' chatter floated into my ears. I thought I misheard. Henry, cold? Confused, Henry tilted his head and looked at me, smiling brightly and boldly. "Karina, my reward, you know." He stretched out a hand, kind of like how Bingo would tug at my pants leg. Proud yet adorably smug. I quickly handed over the water. From the corner of my eye, I saw Peter's face darken as he stared at the water I gave Henry. He smirked, mocking, "So you've got a new target now? Think you just need?" The classmate who lost the game, Henry lazily chimed in, "You shouldn't eat too much salt." Peter's face was so dark it seemed like water would drip from it. I held back Henry from freaking out. Looking around at a few people inside, "Did you consider me a classmate when you mocked me?" Alex lowered his head. "Let it go, Peter, there are other students from outside the school here. After all, you don't even like Karina, so why care who gives her attention?" Peter's face grew colder, eyes icy. I wasn't scared at all. "We're not friends anymore, so no need to care about his feelings." I tugged Henry's arm, reminding him it was time to get the trophy. Henry turned, walking backward with a leisurely ease. With a smile, he gestured to me, "There's a prize I think would be perfect for Bingo. Want to check it out?" "Sure." Behind us, I faintly heard Anna venting to Peter. Henry changed out of his basketball uniform into a black hoodie, his slender neck showing, fresh and clean. He's one of those guys who looks great at first glance, and the more you look, the better he gets. Fiona caught up with us. "Karina, you have such a way with guys, hanging out with Peter a while back, and now getting close with Henry." She crouched next to Henry, with a strange smile. "Henry, did you know? Karina actually shaved her head for our classmate Peter. Don't believe me? Just take off her hat." Henry frowned. I unconsciously tightened the screw cap in my palm. Would he look down on me? It felt like my heart was being squeezed by an invisible hand. Sadly, I've realized I don't really have much to hold on to friendships. Until a dry hand pried open my palm and took away the nut. The fingernail marks on my palm were quite obvious. "Karina, you're not as mature as Bingo." I didn't get it. Henry sighed. "Bingo only shows his claws to enemies. He doesn't hurt himself." Embarrassed, I hid my hand behind me. The unease in my heart vanished. I glanced at Fiona. "Excuse me, could you move? You're blocking us." Fiona gave me an angry look, saw Henry wouldn't speak up for her, and quickly left with a flushed face, hiding it with an umbrella. Henry gave me a thumbs up. I was still a bit dazed. This was my second disagreement with someone today. Both were because of Henry. It was a strange feeling. Speaking my mind wasn't as hard as I thought. "But, Henry, do you know about my hair? I hesitated for a couple of seconds and took off my hat. It had grown a bit lately. Fuzzy, like fresh chive sprouts, kinda ugly, pretty funny. But Henry looked at it intently. No mockery, just earnestness, like a pup longing for a treat. Karina, can I touch it? I had no reason to refuse. Henry's hand came down on top of my head. He quickly pulled back. Did you feel it? Henry flashed a bright smile. I have strong hands. Didn't want to hurt you. I didn't believe it. Those fair and delicate hands couldn't be that strong, right? Henry opened his fingers and laughed. Wanna arm wrestle? I skeptically grabbed his hand. My first ever arm wrestling match. Easy. I won. Slightly awkward. Henry stared at his palm, his eyelashes trembling. His ears turned red in the sun. He must have felt defeated. I racked my brain on how to comfort him. Wanna go again? You might not have been ready. Karina, you're so nice. Let's do it again. We spent the whole afternoon competing over and over. Both our palms got sweaty. Henry's ears got even redder. Turns out, the new friend's pretty competitive. Afterward, I played with Bingo downstairs, thought about sharing some egg tarts with Henry. When I went back up to get them, I bumped into Peter. He seemed to be waiting at the door for me. His eyes were fixed on the tarts, tone sarcastic. You really put your heart into whoever you befriend, huh? So stupid. In the past, I'd get upset when Peter called me dumb. I'd pretend not to care. But now, I felt it genuinely. Like tossing a rotten fruit into the vast ocean, quickly swallowed by the waters. No waves or ripples. Mind your own business. Anger flared in Peter's eyes. Karina, if you go today, I'm not your friend anymore. I was bewildered. Did he lose his memory? We weren't friends in the first place. As the elevator doors closed, Peter's shoulders slumped in the dark. Thankfully, the tarts were still warm. Henry took them, gently holding my fingertips. He noticed the marks on my wrist, eyes sharp. What happened? I shook my head, not wanting Henry involved. Peter's so unhinged, he might harm my friends. Hang on SEC. Henry rushed out and returned with a bag of medicine. Make sure to apply the medicine, morning and night, okay? He went on with instructions on how to use them. Sweat beaded his forehead from rushing, sparkling under the warm streetlight like tiny pearls. They softly dripped onto my heart, making my breath catch. During morning class, Henry showed up in the room. Sam said irritably, "There's just one seat left. Take it." The corner closest to the trash. No one wanted it, so it stayed empty. Henry didn't mind a bit, just tossed his backpack onto the desk. He looked up at me, eyes crinkling in a smile. Someone asked why he transferred to our class. Henry twirled his pen, casually saying, "Heard you guys have a tradition of bullying transfer students. Thought I'd check it out." Alex chuckled. "Nah, that's not true. Our class is super united. Right, Peter?" Before Peter could respond, Henry asked, "Who's Peter? The guy who overreacted after losing a basketball game?" The room went silent. Everyone shot glances at Peter. It was obvious there was tension. Thankfully, the class bell rang just in time. As soon as class was over, I pulled Henry out. He followed reluctantly. "Henry, why did you suddenly join our class?" He stayed silent, just smiled. A guess crossed my mind. But thinking so felt too presumptuous. I averted my eyes. "You should go back to your old school. Exams are coming up." Didn't want Peter to take it out on him because of me. Henry leaned in, looking innocent. "My parents divorced a long time ago. Before the exams, I wanted to get some fatherly love here. Is that not okay, Karina?" "Oh, that was it. I was reading too much into it." "Of course, it's okay." No one in school knew Henry was Sam's son. Walking back to class with Henry, I noticed many eyes on us. Especially Peter's, almost burning a hole through. Henry stepped in front, giving a half smile. Peter can't take losing, huh? You think what you won is so special? Peter retorted. Henry shrugged. Peter, you get upset so easily. I couldn't help it. A small laugh slipped out. Peter clenched his fists, looking darker than ever. When Henry's around, if someone tries to make fun of me like they used to, he claps back before I even react. At night, when we walk bingo, he's super gentle and shy. If he accidentally brushes my hand, he turns all red. Time passed, and then we had our school sports day. Alex was going around getting people to sign up. Henry, you're great at sports. Help our class win something, will ya? Henry didn't even bother to lift an eyelid. Ignored, Alex's smile froze for a second before he walked on like nothing happened. Just then, the sign-up sheet was snatched from his hand. With a cold stare, Henry asked, "Who said you could put Karina's name down?" It suddenly felt like the air around us got heavy and still. I didn't sign up. Alex turned his head away, looking a bit guilty, and briefly made eye contact with Peter. He defended himself. Karina grew up in the mountains. She's stronger than the other girls. She'll be fine running 5,000 meters. Henry chuckled softly and tore up the form. Looking at Alex, he said, "Why do I feel like you'd be more suitable?" "It's a girls' event, I can't join." Henry looked him over lazily. "Oh really? If you hadn't mentioned it, nobody could tell you're actually a guy." Alex's face turned as red as a cooked pig. He couldn't just strip down to prove his manhood, stewing there awkwardly in front of Henry. Peter stood up for him. "Henry, what gives you the right to boss around in our class?" Henry raised an eyebrow slightly. "Karina's my idol, so I have to care." "Peter, are you sticking up for Alex because he's your idol too?" Alex, weighing over 200 pounds and usually Peter's sidekick, was being used to insult Peter. Peter wasn't exactly a calm guy, so he swung his fist at once. Luckily, I had already run out to call Sam. "If you want to fight in my class, both of you can get lost." Alex tried to plead his case. "Henry insulted us. He looks down on everyone." Henry didn't back down, lazily flipping his middle finger. "No offense, but except for my idol, the rest here are trash." This sparked a lot of angry murmurs, and everyone was demanding Sam to take action. Sam glared at Henry, repeating something he said when I was bullied before. "According to the school rules, we're not responsible for transfer students. Everyone, just get along." The same words, but this time there was no smug look on their faces. One by one, they wilted like eggplants hit by frost. While Sam wasn't looking, Henry gave me a sneaky thumbs up. I lowered my head, my eyes welling up. After school, I went to Sam on my own and signed up for the 5,000 meters girls run. Sorry, Henry. I felt a bit guilty for not respecting his stand-up for me in class. I just really wanted to know what it feels like to compete. Back in the mountains, my competition was limited, so I never really knew how good I was. No need to apologize. Henry's eyes were intense. You can do whatever you want, but I don't want anybody forcing you into anything. I grinned and nodded hard. Before the race, I was warming up at the edge of the field. Fiona, with a smirk, said, "Karina, be careful during the race. If a strong wind blows off your hat, that would be so embarrassing." Henry gave a cold smile. "Yeah, the wind's strong enough to blow your face away." Realizing she was called out for being shameless, Fiona stomped her foot in anger. As the race was about to start, the stands were packed, eyes glued to the track. I took off my hat and handed it to Henry. "Trust me." His eyes sparkled with a gentle smile. "Go get M." Bareheaded, I got a lot of curious glances with my spiky hair, but I didn't care anymore. Putting yourself out there for friendship is a happy thing. Even later, when I found out that friendship didn't last, my earnest feelings were genuine. Peter disgusted me. I shouldn't be beating myself up over his nastiness. With my head held high, I stepped onto the track. The gunshot startled the birds circling above. By the time I crossed the finish line, my legs almost gave out. A strong hand caught my waist. Take it slow, do a cool-down lap before stopping. Emotion surged into hot tears in my eyes. I grabbed onto his sleeve. Henry, I did it. I know, I always knew. Henry seemed tense, constantly scanning me to make sure I was okay. The whispers around us floated into my ears. Who's the short-haired girl? She ran so fast. Did you see her expression when she crossed the finish line? She was just so cool. If I remember right, doesn't she have a crush on the school hottie Peter? Oh, come on, she got first place all on her own, looking awesome. What's that got to do with a guy? Sitting on the grass drinking water, a bunch of girls came over to compliment me and even gave me their contacts. There were quite a few guys too. Henry didn't seem too happy, lowering his eyes. What's up? It's okay, he said weakly, I might need to head back. Bingo's sick. I'll go with you. Henry glanced at the stream of guys coming up to me and looked hesitant. I can go alone. Worst case, Bingo scratches me a bit. I quickly pulled him up. Together. After some urging, Henry reluctantly walked with me out of there. We ran into Peter, who just finished the short dash. He seemed to call my name, but I didn't catch it. Because just then, Henry turned and asked, do you think Bingo doesn't like our DIY cat tree? Let's get some treats for it first. I pondered over his question, missing the forlorn look Peter sent my way. The vet said Bingo might just be in a bad mood. Can cats even have bad moods? Of course, the vet said definitively, a pet's mood is often influenced by its owner. So is it Henry who's in a bad mood? After trying every trick to find out, Henry finally gave in, blushing. Maybe it's just the thought of vacation, and not being able to see you every day, that bums me out a bit. I studied his words carefully. Why don't you go stay at Sam's for a few days during the holidays? I feel like I'm getting smarter. I came up with such a great idea. Henry was quiet for a moment, then he laughed. You're right. He lifted his hand and touched my head, sighing slightly. I guess he got pricked by my spiky hair. He's too proud to say anything though. Really such a tsundere guy. Back at the apartment complex, when the elevator doors opened, I almost freaked out seeing Peter standing there. Peter quickly grabbed the door and held the wall with one hand, pressing his chest against my back, almost like he was hugging me. His voice was hoarse and muffled. I'm sorry, Karina. Would you forgive me? Can we go back to the way we were? He leaned in so close his lips nearly touched my ear. I pushed him away forcefully. No. I said coldly, you apologized because I won today. If I had lost, you'd still be bullying me. Peter, if I had lost, would you still apologize? I looked at him, clearer than ever. You wouldn't. You'd just laugh at me with everyone else and keep tormenting me with your immature, disgusting ways, trying to make me bow to you. Peter's body shook a bit. His face went pale. He smiled bitterly. Is that how you see me? So lowly? I didn't bother replying. Behind me, Peter seemed to want to explain, or maybe just mock himself. The registration thing, it was Anna's idea. I didn't know at first. Believe it or not, I never intended to really hurt you. The harsh sound of the closing door blocked out his voice. With winter break, my parents finally had a few days off to spend together. In the morning, someone knocked on the door. Kay? A man around his 40s kindly called my pen name. I smiled and nodded. Recently, someone on my blog reached out, claiming to be the director of a children's hospital. Said my drawings had a healing effect on autistic kids and wanted to buy them, also request more work. I checked his credentials, and it was legit. I rushed to call my parents in. We chatted a bit, and my parents sent me downstairs to buy noodles. By the time I returned, the director had left. We still think it's unreliable. If he's really some hospital director, why would he be interested in your art? Stuff you doodle as a high schooler, people wouldn't want even if you gave it away. Karina, how many times have I told you, don't dream of overnight success. All my expectations and excitement were drained in an instant. A sense of helplessness flooded me. I hurried to run downstairs. Footprints covered in snow, I couldn't catch up. With shaking hands, I opened my blog, trying to reconnect with the director. As I clicked in, it showed the account had been deactivated. My parents admitted it was them who canceled the account. Why are you crying? We're doing this for your own good, and you blame us. We don't have high hopes for you. Can you stop causing trouble? I looked up at them, the redness in my eyes making them even more furious. If you want to go, just go yourself. Your abilities seem to have grown beyond our control. If we had known, we wouldn't have let you stay with your grandma for so long. She's spoiled you rotten. I looked at them, smiled lightly. But that's not true. Grandma always said I was the nicest, most obedient child in the village. But now, I don't want to feel so stifled anymore. When Henry called, I tried to hide it. But it seemed he heard the announcements from the train station through the phone. He calmly asked where I was. I hesitated, then told him what happened. Henry's voice turned serious. Karina, I'm coming right now, don't get on the train. In the waiting area, bored, I counted the patterns on the floor tiles. A pair of shoes, covered in snow and mud, appeared in front of me. Henry was there, snowflakes all over his hair, looking as cold as ice. He took out a scarf from his bag and wrapped it around me silently. His parents were standing behind him. I was dumbstruck. I called your parents already. I don't want to go back. Who said you're going back? Henry's mom chuckled. We're all going to the North City together. I was more stunned than ever. I found out later Henry's mom had recommended my art to that director friend. I opened my mouth, my mind a mess. Henry's mom held my hand with guilt. I never told you, but we knew your grandma a long time ago. Henry's mom shared a story. 14 years ago, she volunteered and was a rural doctor for a few years. When I was little, I showed some different traits compared to other kids. I'd draw patterns in the dirt with a stick all afternoon. Worried, Grandma sought out Henry's mom. She offered a lot of advice, including registering on a blog, which was her suggestion too. And Henry? According to Henry's mom, he also stayed in the mountain when he was a kid. Why don't I remember any of that? Henry's mom laughed softly. As a child, you were quite shy and didn't like playing with Henry. He even cried about it. I still can't remember. In my memory, I always stuck close to a little boy. He was from the city, and at an age when everyone was playing in the mud, he already knew multiplication tables and he dressed really nice, like a little angel from TV. Unlike us, wrapped in dusty old coats every day. Everyone liked playing with him. I was clumsy, slow, always left out. I gave up and went to build a stack of rocks with another lonely kid on the side. The boy pushed away the others and took my hand, leading me home. Don't play with them, they'll bully you. He said seriously, Karina, I'm your only real friend. I knew I was slow, so I nodded obediently. Only play with you, we're best friends. He insisted, the only friend. All right. After that, no one else hung around me. Did I reject Henry back then? I sneaked a glance at him. He seemed to still be upset. I ran off without telling him. Henry, what did you look like when you were little? He ignored me. I remembered Grandma saying I could be cute to those close to me. They wouldn't reject me. I hugged Henry's stiff arm and gave it a little shake. Henry, could you stop being mad? Next time I run away, I'll tell you first, okay? He finally turned his face, seemingly amused. You plan on another time? For once, I was quick on my feet and shook my head with utmost sincerity. Come on, don't be mad. You lose all your softness when you're angry. Henry's mom laughed heartily. Henry has a gentle side? I blinked, not really getting what my aunt meant. Isn't Henry always super nice? Karina, do you want some stir-fried chestnuts? Henry cut through my confusion suddenly. He peeled one, handed it to me, then went back to peeling. Like feeding a hamster. Is it good? Yeah, it's great. Henry, you're really nice. Next to us, Henry's mom chuckled again. With laughter in the air, Henry's cheeks turned red. Sam frowned, like he wanted to say something, but shut up after Henry's mom nudged him. The vibe was kinda weird. I couldn't figure it out, so I just focused on eating the chestnuts. The director bought 32 paintings for $420,000 in royalties to me. That's a crazy amount, but Henry's mom frowned, saying the director shortchanged them. After some haggling, $500,000 was added to the account. This was my first big paycheck. Henry laughed and patted my head. You're amazing. I proudly accepted his compliment. Gone was the timid, insecure me from when I first came to the city. On the way back, there were 2 extra gifts in my bag. From Henry's mom and Sam. The house was still cold and quiet. When my parents heard the director really bought my paintings, they were shocked for a second, then went right back to normal. They didn't apologize for shutting down the blog. Nor did they praise me like Henry's mom did. Later, I overheard them in the bedroom discussing whether I should repeat a year and try for an art academy. To them, I wasn't a kid, just a not-so-great machine they wanted to program to work their way. I wasn't about to accept that fate. After the mock exam, my scores hovered around the average college linear, a massive improvement from before. I still wore the same old clothes. The only thing different was having Henry by my side every day on the way to and from school. It was like he was afraid I'd run away again. He practically wanted to put a rope on me. One evening in early April, Peter stopped me at the door. He'd lost a ton of weight, almost all bones. I hadn't kept up with him during the months, but I'd heard bits of news. Apparently, he broke up with Anna. And got involved with some girl from a vocational school, which had Sam calling his parents a few times. He gave me a hard stare, intense and fixated. I've never liked Anna, he said. What if I told you, the one I've always liked is you? Peter shut his eyes in pain. He'd always known his feelings for Karina were different. She was actually really pretty and super sweet, offering him all her heart. No matter what awful things he did, she never got mad. Like a doll he could push around. She even cut her hair because of a lie he told her. How could someone so simple not tug at his heart? Peter was scared. Scared he might not be able to resist being with Karina. So he accepted Anna's confession. Hoping Karina would understand he could never reciprocate her feelings. Between them, there could only be friendship. Sometimes, he even resented her, wondering why she couldn't just be normal. She was so slow on the uptake. People said one thing, and she'd mull over it like 3 times. Being around Karina meant dealing with odd looks from everyone. He'd be mocked, just like her. His parents wouldn't approve of him dating someone like Karina. And he didn't want that kind of tough life either. But he'd learn much later. That Karina wasn't the fool. He was. No one else would ever offer him such an honest heart so openly again. I figured Peter was drunk. He was talking nonsense, and it was annoying. Why would I care who you like? I don't like you anyway. After I said that, Peter laughed, looking unfazed. No way, you used to treat me so well. You never got mad no matter how mean I was, and even cut your hair for me. Isn't that liking me? I was taken aback. You could see it that way? I shook my head in disbelief. Peter, I really don't like you. I've been nice because you're my friend, and since you're grandma's, I need to take care of you. Peter thought he misheard. When Grandma passed, I wanted to keep a few of her things, but my parents thought it was bad luck and burned it all. I remembered you were taken care of by Grandma too, so it's like you're something she left me. I sincerely pointed out, you're no different than Grandma's flashlight, clothes rack, or water basin. Maybe my parents were right, keeping things brings bad luck, like you're just unlucky. When I finished, Peter's face was beyond pale. He gritted his teeth, I don't believe you. Believe whatever you want, there's no need to explain. I turned to head home, but Peter pulled me back into a hug. You like Henry, don't you? He sneered. Stop dreaming. If he knows how twisted you are, you think he'd still want to be friends? Relax, I'm the only one who can stand you. He leaned down to kiss me aggressively. I slapped him across the face. Peter turned his head from the hit, a red handprint quickly appearing. He touched his cheek and chuckled low. Feel better now? Are we even? I shook his hand off and walked home. Peter's words really hit deep. Fear spread inside me. If Henry knew about my past, would he be scared? I didn't want to lose Henry. He meant way more to me than Peter ever did. I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, carefully dialing his number. Henry picked up fast. Where are you? I heard a glass fall on the other side. Henry sounded so anxious. Was he scared I'd run away again? Suddenly, I wasn't worried anymore. Henry, we'll always be best friends, right? He was silent for a moment, then chuckled warmly, of course. When I hung up the phone, I think I heard him sigh softly. After the third mock exam, I dropped 2 more places. Sam said this test was super hard, so I shouldn't worry too much. Just focus on preparing. I shook off the disappointment and buckled down for some serious studying. Henry seems to have found a new hobby, constantly giving me snacks. He even sneaks bingo into school. So here I am, writing away during exams, while the other hand's digging around in my bag, petting the cat. Stress relief at its finest. Peter hasn't talked to me lately. But whenever I chat with Henry, I can feel these gloomy eyes burning into my back. On the last day before exams, Peter came up to my desk. He took off his hat. His hair was all chopped off. With pursed lips, he asked, "Is this good enough?" Alex was so shocked he couldn't speak. "What did you do? Feeling too stressed before finals?" It was like Peter's pride was chipped away bit by bit. As he bent his head, he chuckled lightly. "I'm trying to win over Karina, you know what I mean." He looked at me with the same firmness he had when we were kids. "Any injustice you've suffered, I'll make it right. No one will dare laugh at you again." Before I got a word in, Henry suddenly moved our table partner aside and sat right next to me. Resting his chin on his hand, he looked at Peter with interest. Clicking his tongue, he sighed, "Is this the best your school's got? The best looking guy? Go buy a card game, the ID and the photocopy are what you get for it." Peter's face turned awkward for a split second but managed to smile. "I'm talking to Karina." I fiddled with my pen and shook my head. "Peter, it's not necessary. Karina, it's not your call to make." He put his hat back on and returned to his seat. Henry stayed glued to my side. I noticed earlier when Peter walked over, Henry was pretty tense, clutching the desk hard. "Don't worry," I whispered close to Henry's ear, reassuring him, "we're the best team ever." Henry's tense lips softened into a smile, though it seemed less joyful. After the college entrance exam, I moved out of my parents' place. They heard I was working part-time and were pleased, seeing it as a sign of maturity. But I no longer cared about their opinions. "Henry, do you think we'll go to college in the same city?" "Of course." "And can we stay best friends in college?" I explained timidly, "Not that you can't have other friends, but, could we?" "Yeah, sure." He didn't even think about it. He patted my short hair. "If I said no, would you cry under the covers again?" "I wouldn't." "Right," Henry laughed, his eyes sparkling. "Without reassurance, I'd cry too." I couldn't imagine Henry crying. Peter didn't make another appearance. Word is he flunked the exam and his parents sent him to repeat a year at a school far away. Henry and I ended up in the same city. He's in sports school, and I barely made it into the medical school for psychology since day one. Henry's been visiting me daily. Sometimes to bring snacks, other times pretending he needed to eat at the canteen because he was low on living expenses. He's always got a reason for coming by, but never lets me visit his school. I asked him why, and he mumbled something about it being all guys training shirtless and sweaty. He said I'd feel awkward. Henry's got good looks, and even in a simple trench coat, he looks like he's wearing something high-end. Whenever he's at the dorm, he draws in a crowd of girls. My roommate gushed, "Karina, a tall, handsome sports guy. And of great quality. My college roommates are friendly. After 2 years, we've become pretty close. I've explained many times that Henry and I are just friends. They didn't buy it, so I had to repeat myself. Cindy raised her hand. Should I introduce you to a senior? He's had a crush on you for ages, but hasn't dared act because he's worried you have a boyfriend. A crush? Someone crushing on me? My roommate rolled her eyes. Please, you're the belle of our psych department. Have some self-confidence. They dragged me to the mirror. Over the past 2 years, Henry's feeding made me put on a few pounds. My once sharp jaw finally had some softness, no longer looking like a scrawny kid. They also changed up my wardrobe. Seeing the long-haired, pretty girl in the mirror, I felt oddly familiar yet strange. My roommate clung to my arm. Are you in or out? Say something. I nodded, sure. Dating in college seems normal enough. I went to meet the senior. The moment he opened his mouth, I wanted to leave. He reeked of smoke. Karina, I got you a bubble tea, less sugar, less ice. Girls love it. He was enthusiastic, so I forced myself to stick it out. He bombarded me with questions, where I went to school, my parents' jobs, any siblings. Once he found out I grew up in the mountains, he seemed intrigued, eyeing me up and down. You've got great presence, doesn't seem mountain-grown. His compliments felt off, making me uncomfortable. His gaze was like sizing up merchandise for sale. Henry never looked at me like that. I kinda missed Henry. Henry, where are you? I texted him, but got no answer. After 20 minutes, I awkwardly picked up my phone. Sorry, we aren't a good fit. Let me wire you the money for the tea. Once the money was sent, I dashed out of the dining hall. And bumped right into Henry, all dressed in black. He gave me a weird look. Ran into your roommate at the gate. She said you were on a date? I nodded, just about to share my horror story. Henry grabbed my wrist, his voice raw. Why? Why date? His grip was loose, and I easily slipped free. Henry switched to holding my hand. I didn't notice anything weird. Walking along, I complained, lots of people date in college, just curious what it's like. Henry made a sound, asking calmly, and how was it? His grip tightened, hurting for a second. Didn't like it. I looked up at the sky and sighed deeply. I thought I would always be alone. Henry laughed. The heavy atmosphere around him seemed to disappear instantly. He looked at me with a soft smile. So, you want to be in love? Not really. Well, can you consider me first? I was stunned. I looked up and met Henry's deep, dark eyes. My heart raced like an electric car on the highway. Henry, I called out to him awkwardly. He raised his hand and gently brushed the bangs on my forehead. He leaned his forehead against mine and gently nuzzled. His voice was different, not as cool and distant as usual, carrying a hint of charm. Karina, I don't want to wait anymore. Will you date me? I opened my eyes wide in shock but didn't seem to resist. In such an important moment, I couldn't help but take a sniff. Henry smelled nice. I liked it. But if we date, can we still be good friends? I didn't expect I'd be hung up on this question. Henry was startled for a moment, of course. His voice carried a lazy amusement, and a dimple appeared on his cheek. A boyfriend is also a friend. All right then. I hugged him proactively. So, will we be lifelong partners? Of course. He chuckled, resting his chin gently on top of my head. Suddenly, I felt a drop of water dampen my neck. I peered up at the clear sky. Henry, why are you crying? I tried to look, but he held my head against his chest. I grudgingly tugged at his shirt, hitting some kind of button. Henry gasped, his entire body stiffening. I quietly withdrew my hand. I told my roommate I went out for a blind date with a senior, and Henry ended up being my boyfriend. Her face turned to one of I knew it. I always said that, every time he sees you, he only has 3 words in his eyes. I love you. Karina, you're both psychology majors, and you couldn't see that? I did well in my courses but never tried my skills on people close to me. Pay attention to his micro-expressions and small actions. You'll definitely find new discoveries, my roommate advised. I love learning and summarizing. Henry walked me to the dorm entrance. I tilted my head to observe his slightly drooping mouth. Henry, do you want to hug me? As soon as I spoke, he pulled me into his arms. Looks like I guessed right. I became passionate about analyzing Henry's various micro-expressions. It felt like acing an exam with the answers in hand. On our 100th day of dating, Henry and I were walking by the lake. He suddenly took my hand and stopped, his gaze lingering on my face. I nestled into his arms skillfully and hugged him tightly. Just as I was about to stand, he held me in place. Not enough. He laughed hoarsely and asked if I figured out what he wanted. You want to kiss me? Can you? He asked softly. I didn't reply. He cupped my face, and under the moonlight, a gentle glow appeared in his eyes. So that means yes. He said and then kissed me. It was wild and intense, like a wolf pup trying to swallow me whole, with no trace of gentleness. I whimpered helplessly until he finally stopped. We walked hand in hand down a quiet path. Karina. Henry had that look again. Clearly, he was setting me up because he knew I was diligent and eager to learn. I covered my lips, not this time. Disappointed, he lowered his gaze. All right, maybe next time. I can wait, for however long it takes. He forced a smile, sulking as he walked ahead. I saw through his act. Henry, I tugged on his arm. You need to be gentle this time. His eyes fluttered as he bent down. Okay. Out of nowhere, Bingo jumped from my pocket. When we got back, it wagged its tail pleadingly. I couldn't resist petting it. Henry turned away, his ears bright red. I hadn't figured out what that advanced micro-expression meant yet. I found out much later that Henry meant, don't play with its tail, play with me instead. After graduation, Henry rushed me into an engagement. My parents were the last to know. They were furious but couldn't do anything about it. I wasn't their controllable robot anymore. I worked in the psychology department of a hospital. The patients loved the pictures I put on the wall. One day at the hospital, I ran into Peter. He still had a shaved head, looking so thin that I barely recognized him. It's sad, really, the doctor shook his head. Just in his 20s with a brain tumor, not much time left. My head buzzed. Just like Grandma, end-stage tumor, no chance for surgery, and the hospital could only make his last days less painful. As the new doctor, I went to provide humanitarian psychological counseling to Peter. He wasn't surprised to see me, even smiled a bit. I knew you worked here, so I'm here. Karina, would you call this karma? I tucked him in and washed my hands with disinfectant before speaking. Don't overthink it, just focus on getting better. Henry somehow heard I was in Peter's room and left work, rushing over, visibly out of breath. Peter looked at us, coughing until his throat was hoarse. Henry frowned and pressed the call button for help. He took my hand and led me out. Henry, stop right there. Peter pushed through the nurse, looking fierce. How much do you think you love Karina? Do you know about her past? When she was 5, she went to a burial site, dug up a dead dog, and took it home to sleep by her bed for a whole day and night. She's not normal, how could you possibly love her? His words shook me to the core. Henry calmly tightened his grip on my hand, looking down at Peter. So what? I helped her dig it up. According to you, I'm not normal too. Yeah, we're freaks, and you're a dead man. Peter couldn't hold on, spurting a mouthful of blood. Disgusted, Henry yanked me out of the room. Shouldn't have pitted him. I drifted off, remembering as a child that my grandma's dog died. I was devastated. I didn't understand death then, I just wanted the dog back. In the overgrown hills, my little arms couldn't move the dirt. A little boy came up behind me, silently unearthed the dog. Don't cry, here you go. I carried the dog downhill, forgetting to ask his name or remember what he looked like. Years later, I understood from others that normal people don't do what I did. "Henry, was that little boy you?" He nodded, raising a hand to pat my head but stopped midway. After washing his hands, he wiped away my tears with a smile. "Henry is a brick, he's open to do whatever my heart needs." Later, I understood a lot more. The fleece-lined baseball cap was planted by him in Sam's office. Bingo was a stray cat. Henry claimed it was his pet to make me less defensive. Henry asked his mom to get the dean to buy my paintings. It was also Henry who visited Grandma and the big yellow dog with me year after year. "Henry, how nice it would have been to know you earlier." He held the ball-shaped Bingo, smiling just like that night when he handed me a cake that wouldn't work. "Babe, I'd be too tempted to make you fall for me way too early."